Greetings to one and all. It's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with some countermeasures goodness. I firstly wanted to say thank you for all of the support and subscriptions over the last few weeks since the YouTube channel launched. I really do appreciate it, and yeah, it's been really, really great. So if you haven't subscribed already, then please do. It is free, and it makes a huge difference to the channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel, there is a subscribe link. There'll also be one in the podcast version of this as well. So that would be really, really awesome. Today I have a very special treat for you, as I thought as part of this sort of mini series that I'm doing, it might be quite interesting to catch up with some fellow creatives and have more of an informal chat about the different kinds of experiences that people have had throughout this crazy industry. This episode is available for you on YouTube, but also at all good podcasting outlets like iTunes, etc., etc. You just need to search for Countermeasures Podcast, I think it's going to be, and it should hopefully pop up. I'll also put a link in the description below, along with a load of other details that support this particular broadcast. So yeah, on with it. This week I caught up with my old friend and fellow designer Jonathan Beecher, and the format of this is that I asked him 10 questions based around his creative journey. He's a graphic designer and an illustrator. He is the co-creator of 1977 Design, and over the last few years he has set up Pop Reads Publishing, which creates children's books based on classic hit songs. And he's also an all-round nice chap. Now, this is the first podcast that I've ever done, and I think John might have done some before, but maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. We didn't discuss that, but it does roll on for about 2 hours. So strap in, or just listen to the first 5 minutes and then tune out. But either way, I hope you enjoy it. And all I can say is, yeah, I hope it goes down well. So take my hand and come with me as we dive once more into my deep, deep design pocket and learn more about the journey of a creative in 2020. Hello, John. Thanks for joining me on the first ever podcast for whatever this is, Countermeasures. Yeah, well, global branding now. If you need me, call my agent. So basically, I have a list of 10 questions for you that charts your creative journey through your life, which is
my creative journey.
Sorry?
I think with my creative journey, 10 questions just isn't enough.
I thought about 11.
Preschool, that'll cover me in a nursery, but what are we going to do for the rest of the 3 years?
Did I not say this is part 1 of 70 podcasts? I thought, just as until the lockdown's over, we just do one a day. Yeah,
an hour of my life every day.
Exactly, yeah. Because when you've been doing all the other stuff, what you really want to do is record a podcast late at night.
But also, I believe the world needs more podcasts from face-to-face white people like us.
Well, I was going to say that when I first thought about doing this, I thought, there's so many of them, and some of them aren't very good. Let's make another. So yeah, that's why we're here. So for the one person listening, hi Mum, cheers for that. So shall I start you off on your first question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first question is, we don't have to do all 10, by the way. We just that's what I thought. But then if we roll into the kind of 4-hour mark, we'll probably put a pin in it. Okay, so the first question is, when do you first remember yourself leaning towards being creative?
I got numerous. I've got loads of little memories that you kind of piece together in your own head of back when I was a kid, and like you say, always drawing. Everyone, all the kids are drawing. We're in lockdown at the moment. What are we trying to get our kids to do? Drawing, because it kind of takes 10, 15, 20 minutes of their time that we can sit down and kind of consume coffee. Yeah. So, but kind of the real ones that I've got real kind of proper memories of were when my mum and dad, we'd go around to see sort of like maybe some older relatives, or we'd go, or on those odd occasions, my mum and dad would go out, but they would take us with her, and they would take me with them,
Mm.
because there'd be a few other kids there or whatever. I've got this real vivid memory of going into my mum's bag and pulling out kind of like old envelopes, because she always used to have like envelopes from kind of like
Okay.
bills or letters or whatever,
Yeah.
and then getting a pen and sitting there and drawing and creating little characters or whatever. So I was
Yeah.
always doing
How
that.
old were you then? Can you remember how old you were?
I think my earliest memory would have been, I mean, this will mean nothing to yourself or that one listener that you've got. Hello, Mrs. Measures.
Thanks, Mum. We're not telling you anything. Hello, Mrs. Beechwood. We're not telling you anything you don't already know.
Around what we used to call my Aunt Doll. She was called Aunt Doll. Her name was Doll, and she was my great aunt or great aunt. So I'd have been probably about 4, maybe somewhere 4, maybe 5 at a push.
Yeah.
And I've got a real distinct memory of sitting behind her very kind of old lady floral sofa, like with the little flower patterns and stuff like that. It was all kind of embroidered, with her kind of like, she had about 23 cats or whatever it was, all just going around, and go through my mum's purse to get out these old brown envelopes and find a little biro pen and doodling these little characters. But a memory that I've actually got, which is slightly before that, was in our old house, and having these. They were actually Rolf Harris branded paint, kind of like.
Please tell me you kept those. They will be worth an absolute fortune. Are they signed?
If only. He used them to sign me. That's what.
That is so dark. I love it.
They were like these large pens, and they had like a really thick foam tip, which was probably kind of like about 20 mil wide, and it was full of paint. And I remember like being up in like my bedroom, just like paint and drawing and stuff like that. And then just yeah, exactly. Well, that was Rolf in the wardrobe. But I remember running up the walls, and then just carrying on going on the walls.
Yeah. I bet your mum was like, "This is brilliant. I'm so glad that he chose art and not mathematics."
Yeah. They're kind of like two of the main kind of like things that always constantly stuck in my head. Whenever I thought about why the dickens did I go into drawing and like design and stuff like that, they're the two of the earliest memories that I can think of. Well, that's what I did.
It's funny. It's funny how those things early on, it's usually obviously drawing related, because you're not necessarily drawing logos and doing brand guidelines when you're a kid, but you've got this inclination that you've got an idea that you need to put down onto paper, and whether that's characters that you're making up, or or whether it's things you've seen on the television that you are copying.
We always used to draw kind of like faux superheroes and stuff, didn't we? Because you were obviously massively comic.
Oh yeah, for the listener out there, that's right. So like John and I have known each other since we were like 11, 12, around that sort of time. And we used to sit next to each other in English, and I'm not sure we sort of paid attention. We did all right in English, but we used to do lots of drawing. I guess that's just so what we would have been like, early teens. That sort of progression. By that point, I mean, before I even went to secondary school, and I'm sure you're the same, I already knew that I wanted to do something arty. I knew I wasn't going to be doing like science. I enjoyed those things, but I preferred to paint and draw, and I guess you just lean towards the things that you enjoy doing more than you.
I mean, I've got another distinct memory. It must have been around about my 8th or 9th birthday. And at the time, my uncle was working at Hotpoint, the Hotpoint factory in Peterborough. And I remember looking at a brochure or something, and they had all their new kind of like stuff coming in, new microwaves or fridges or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my mum, when I grow up, I'm going to be a designer working for Hotpoint. And I can remember my mum going, "Oh, really? What are you going to design?" And I remember saying, "I don't know."
She was like, "This boy has focus."
Everything that is the real earliest memory where I thought this is a career or job or role or something that I want to do that I can see myself doing for a period of time,
Yeah.
like in the future.
Yeah.
And then because I had that kind of initial thought, everything that I've done through education, etc., was
Yeah.
always geared towards
Yeah,
fulfilling
you were
that
just
initial idea
refining
I
that.
had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
refine because you get an idea, right? So like for me, it
Yeah,
was like look for me it was like comic books. So I always liked comic books, but I knew somebody drew these books and
mm,
somebody had to put them together somehow, and I didn't know how, but I knew that if I sort of started looking down that path, that eventually there'd be a point in my life that that it might be a possibility. I mean, it actually turns out I didn't do that, but there was a time during my teenage years where I that was something that was like a driving force. So like you say, you see these things like your
yeah,
hot point catalogs, or the other things were like Airfix
yeah,
instructional booklets. So things
mm,
like that was just like somebody, you kind of start getting an idea of like, oh, this exists and where does it come from, and then that curiosity then spirals into and tied to the fact that you like drawing and being arty, you start to think, actually, I could probably do this for a living and it would be quite fun. And then you hit 40 and realize that it is fun. It is definitely, everyone out there, it's definitely fun. But yeah, no, I
I
think
mean,
that's,
we get to be creative. It may
yeah,
be creative in the loosest term of the word on some projects or whatever,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, there are so many people in so many different jobs that are so
yes,
much work
yes,
and not as much fun. I mean, running the studio, I mean, I'm sure you're the same at your place, but running the studio 77 and what have you, with the people that we had in,
mm.
not a day went by where I didn't enjoy
No, no,
thoroughly being in the
yeah,
office, because it was great fun, bouncing ideas off people, helping, creating stuff, getting feedback from others, giving
yeah,
feedback to some, just like even some of the most mundane, there's only so many ways you can design a DL leaflet
yeah,
for
yeah, sure. But
for
in
whatever it may
some
be.
ways, I found like that part of the problem solving started to become more interesting to me than actually sitting and drawing cartoons all day. As soon as we
Yeah,
made
I
that,
agree.
because we both sort of came up together through secondary school, and then we did our foundation year, and then went on to university, and all during that time there was a transition period. I don't think I'm wrong in saying this for you as well, in that like you start thinking, well, I can draw, and actually the problem solving side of it is actually, well, for me it was more interesting, because
No,
like
absolutely.
I thought I could be an illustrator that a designer comes to get some work done, or I could be a designer who can illustrate, which albeit badly on both fronts, but I feel that like that problem solving element was what started to be more interesting, and like you're saying, because of that, I sort of wake up in the morning, and like I said, even though it might be a pretty sort of, maybe a sort of mediocre job, or one that's not, doesn't seem to be that inspiring, I still enjoy it, like on a very base level. Would rather much do that than than another normal proper job.
And work for
Yeah, than work for a living. Yeah, and I still feel grateful that like I found something that I was interested in, that eventually that I have enjoyed. I mean, there are, like you said, there are good and bad days and all that kind of stuff, but
Absolutely. Everyone has good and bad days, and and everyone has good and bad projects, and sometimes some ideas work out, some ideas don't.
mm,
Whatever it may be. At the end of the day, I think you said it to me a few days ago or whatever. We're paid to be creative. And isn't that a really fun thing?
yeah,
Kids are paid to be creative, and they're creative, and they're
yeah,
having a great time.
yeah.
So we're doing exactly the same, but someone gives us some money,
But someone
which
gives
allows
us
us
money. Well,
to take
hopefully they
life
do. In the
Yeah,
current
hopefully.
climate, it is.
Okay, someone says they might give us some money at some point.
I think just the elephant in the room, obviously, being the fact that we're in total like lockdown and all that
Oh
kind of
yeah, we're
stuff.
locked down.
Obviously, that affects your day-to-day
Yeah,
running of the office and all that sort of
yeah,
stuff. Because obviously, I haven't mentioned it before, but you run your own business. It is interesting to see how you go up through the secondary school, and then you go through university, and when you came out. I'm jumping ahead slightly to question two, but when you came out of your education side of things, how did you guide yourself towards a career? Because obviously you're taking something you love from early on, you're developing that in your later years, in your teenage years. Then when you get to your 20s, it's like, oh, I probably should get a job. And what did you do to kind of?
Well, that's the beauty of youth and exuberance and excitement, and so you go up to we both did it. We did the traditional route to becoming kind of like fully fledged designers. You do GCSEs, A levels, and we went on and did our foundation course, which allowed us to go on to the universities. And then we did our BA honours in graphic design or whatever course similar, and then did what everyone did, which is move down to London and try and get a job. Now, for me, so that was always the goal. So even before I went to uni, even before I did my A levels, even before I did my GCSEs, I always knew I wanted to go to university, and I always knew I wanted to study something probably design arty kind of thing. And I kind of had a feeling that I'd always end up going to London because that's where everyone goes and that's where all the exciting stuff happens. So all of my decisions through school, kind of like what courses I was going to do or whatever, were always geared with that as the kind of end goal, if you will. I was aiming for. So getting into uni, which was awesome and had an absolutely fantastic time. Was up at University of Northumbria in Newcastle.
It's a good uni. It's a very good uni.
Really, really good uni. And at the time when we joined, they'd just had they'd had a fantastic 3 or 4 years of D&ADs, like student D&ADs. They were one of the really good courses to get on. So I was really pleased to get onto that.
That's the home of Vaughan Oliver as well. So he was obviously big. Vaughan
Oliver sadly passed away, and obviously Jonathan Ive on production, on 3D design and what have you.
Did you ever meet them? Did they ever come to your uni or do any other kind of?
Jonathan Ive did do a chat, but he didn't do. But he was only doing it to the 3D team when we were there.
Okay.
It wasn't it because he was so obviously. I mean, even saying that, it was the late 90s, so this is 97, 98, somewhere around there. So Apple were just kind of resurging. And I don't think they hadn't released the iMac yet, the new iMac, or whatever. So it was still the old beige boxes. I think
so they hadn't got the coloured ones yet, and then all the
But he was like a designer at Apple, so he came and did a chat, but we didn't go in. But I did see, we had various good people come up, like Johnson Banks and stuff. Did some chats. But so I was at uni, and it was really good. And one of the things that our uni was really good at, and I kind of assume other unis did the same thing, other uni courses, was that they had good links with lots of industry companies. So when it came to the end of our second year, over the summer period, we had options to go in to actual agencies and spend some time. There were lots of agencies offering 2, 3, 4 week placements, but there were a few agencies that were offering kind of like 2 or 3 month placements. And I was like, I definitely want a 2 or 3 month placement.
Well, the longer you're there and the more ingrained you become, and the more that you get exposure, and you're like, well, is this really? Because up until that point, you're like, what am I going to be doing when I start on my first day? So
you're at uni, and you get given a brief on, say, the Monday morning, and then you've got like 6 weeks to dick around. You dick around for like 4 weeks. You do some scamps. You got your sketchbook. You do kind of like a million pages in your sketchbook.
Got your latte.
The same thing over and over again. And then those last couple of weeks you rush it, and then move on to the next one. So I thought it would be great to get some proper industry experience, because I'm at uni to enjoy myself and learn things and all of those kind of things. But I'm also there to get myself a job. The reason why I'm taking on all of this debt is to be able to get a job to pay off the debt. So I jumped at the chance to get the opportunity to go for this 2-3 month placement, and I managed to get it. I remember going down to London for like I've only ever been to London like 3 or 4 times in my entire life.
Well, we did some like college trips, didn't we? We went down to Tate and things like that.
So but again, my only frame of reference for London was probably a bit of Regent Street, Tate Britain, because Tate Modern was open.
Wherever the bus dropped us off.
Wherever the bus dropped.
So we know all the bus stops in London.
I remember one time there was, I think it was you, me, and somebody else, and because like she took us to Camden, and we was hitting on Camden and stuff. But so my frame of reference of London.
Many times after that, did we go to Camden, didn't we?
So coming down to London for kind of like the first time by myself, I've got my portfolio, I'm all excited and stuff like that.
The
and
Dick,
trying to find
the Dick Whittington of Newcastle, skipping down to London. Hey,
could you direct me to?
Excuse me, good fellow. Could you tell me where the roads of gold are? Yeah.
I remember coming down to London and going to the agency, Uffindale West, they were called at the time. They're now Uffindale Group.
I remember you starting there. So you were still at uni then, or was it off the back of your last year then?
No, it was at uni. So I did that 2 to 3 month. It was about 3-month work placement over the summer between the second year and the third year.
Yeah.
I was at Uffindale West. Absolutely awesome. I mean, I was staying at my mum and dad's in Peterborough, and I was commuting down on the train because it's quite an easy commute from Peterborough to London.
Yeah.
They were paying £150 a week.
Yeah.
For me to go there. The train fare was 135.
So you had £15 for a cab one day, and then you walked the rest. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic time.
Yeah, but you didn't care about that though. I remember, I did the same thing. I had a couple of placements. It was the same thing. It was the between the second and third year, and I had a couple of placements. I did one at Saatchi's for a week, which was just it was fine, but it wasn't really a very good experience.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because it's so large. You think, fucking hell. Sorry, I don't mean to swear.
No,
think, geez, we're at Saatchi.
Yeah. I know. So when because our old tutor at Birmingham, he taught Trevor Beatty. So like years and years ago, so he had contacts with him over the years, and at the time he had TBWA, but he was still doing something with Sarch. So for whatever reason, we managed to get down there, and I went for just over a week, and it wasn't what I expected it to be, because I thought it would be, I thought I'd just be like following someone around and they'd be showing me the ropes. But obviously everyone's really busy because they've got a job, so like you just end up kind of not doing very much for the first half of the week, and then you start getting involved in a project for a couple of days, and then that's your week over. So
which is exactly what I wanted to avoid by I decided to do this.
I mean, it looks great on the CV. It's like, oh, you did your placement at Saatchi's. Oh yeah, it was the last day was awesome. So like you can it is. But then the flip side of that is that I then did a work placement at Beresford's. And that one only did, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and I had the opportunity to sort of spend more time with people and just get involved in projects more. And when people know you're there for a little bit longer, they're more likely to get you, they've seen 50 faces before you turn up. So if they know you're going to be there for a little bit longer, then they can get you more involved in projects. And yeah, that turned into a job. Like basically when I finished my placement, they said, when you finish uni, just ring us and come back. So like that last year of uni was like, as much as I enjoyed it, I couldn't wait to start work basically.
I was similar. I mean, starting at Uffindale for those 3 months really completely opened my eyes and ears and everything to the world of design, because they were they are a really good brand design agency. They, at the time,
I remember you working there. I remember because we were living together with some other men.
I'm saying, so like during that uni period, going down there, no experience of design agencies whatsoever, or frame of reference or how it works, and going in there, and it was a studio of there was kind of like about 6 designers, there was a couple of consultants, there was a couple of the production team, then there was Erica, who's the MD. And then like a couple of admin staff and what have you. So it was kind of like about a team of 15, somewhere around there. So it felt kind of like quite a good size. And they had a really
not
nice,
too big that you get lost, and not too small that you feel like you're not getting opportunity to get involved.
But you got to know everybody, so I got to know everybody by their first name, and everyone got to know me and what have you. And you kind of like start to get you get involved in the culture of the agency and how they deal with stuff. I mean, they had some, well, still do, but they, at the time they handled the rebrands for Royal Bank of Scotland and NatWest and BG, Rolls Royce and Vickers, and they're doing all these things. And what I really liked about it is that they kind of welcomed me in as someone who was actually there to do work with them. Now, obviously, I got there. I did a lot of picture research. I did a lot of mocking up.
Yeah, of course.
cutting out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I also got involved. I also got to work with some senior designers on projects. I got
Yeah.
to put forward ideas. I got involved in pretty much everything, and just seeing how the other side of design
Mm.
works. How I remember starting there, and like at uni, coming up with ideas. I'd go through 3 or 4 sketchbooks, scamping ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember sitting down with creative director Gary at the time, and like he was talking about a brief, and him and like the senior designer, they literally had one sheet of paper, and they were
Yeah.
like did like 3 little scamps,
Yeah.
because they'd done
That was
all of
it.
they'd done all of the design work that I was doing in my 100-page sketchbooks
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
and over again, mentally in a few minutes, and
Yeah.
then just scamped out like the 3 or 4 that had real legs.
And
Just
that
as
only comes with experience. Yeah, that
exactly.
comes with experience.
And
And like now,
that
like, sorry,
that
go
really
on.
stuck. No, sorry. That
Yeah.
really stuck with me, and that really changed how straight away, like that changed how when I went back to uni,
Yeah.
changed how I kind of worked at university.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
felt like when I went back to uni, I started to work in a more professional, and I use that term really loosely,
Yeah.
but in a more appropriate manner, as you would do in a
Sure.
studio, because I picked up
Yeah.
that's how you work in the studio.
But
I mean,
also,
I'd also
you could sorry
go
to
on.
interrupt. You can see where, up until you're still going through education and you're
Yeah,
learning about how to be a designer, and up until that point you've just got, you might have a few guest lecturers and people like that, but mainly you've got tutors and fellow pupils telling you how things are and what things are going to be, and this is it. But
yeah,
until you actually get in that environment, and it was the same for me as well. I got into an environment where I was suddenly like, okay, I've got some skills I can use here. I also have a load of skills that do not apply. So like you're
yeah.
saying, I can sit
Hold
and
down.
draw sketchbooks, or, I love doing that stuff, but like, the days of doing that for days are over. It's like you've got 20 minutes, see you with your
Yeah,
first ideas in half an hour, so
yeah,
like, it really helps you to hone that down. So, that's why I think those placements in that sort of second year period where you're sort of serious, you've got some skills, how it helps you hone them down. And then in your last year, it really does sort of help you
yeah.
sort of bring that together. And I
No, I
don't
agree.
know so much now, but like, do people, sorry to keep babbling, but do people still have their placements? Because for a long time I had contacts at uni where they were doing placements and things like that, and now it's less. I don't really hear much about it, and I think,
I'd like to think so. I mean, we ran placement scheme for years and years in 77. I mean,
yeah,
we were always wanting,
yeah,
because we found it so valuable. I mean, I know Paul, business partner at the time, he found it really valuable. So
yeah,
it was something, and we had some great people in on placement, and
yeah, yeah,
who really learned and have gone on and what have you. But I really, that placement really did change my whole kind of thing. I mean, I came down to London with really long hair, wearing a full-length leather jacket,
mm.
flared jeans, and a blooming stupid frilly shirt or
Oh, the
whatever.
70s.
Yeah, with my
Sorry, late
side,
90s.
late 90s, with my massive sideburns, and
Mm.
I'm starting back at Newcastle like
Yeah,
after the summer, and I'd had my hair cut short. I trimmed my sideburns. That
that's
was all
so
nice.
funny. I've never talked to you about that, but I did exactly the same thing. I had a placement at Saatchi's. I came down, I cut all my hair off, and then I did the week, and then I went back to university. Exactly the same thing. I just thought like,
And it changed me, man. It changed me.
yeah, 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 exactly, yeah. But yeah, I guess it's that weird thing where you sort of like at that stage, it was quite, everybody sort of had like long hair and was into indie music and all that stuff, and yeah, it was at that point where you're suddenly like, I want to make that transition from student
Mm.
to young professional, and yeah, I guess the locks had to go. Some people kept them. It's not a good look now. I'm glad they went, but I tell you what, this COVID lockdown deal is not. The
Oh
curls
yeah.
are coming back.
Oh,
You're looking quite respectable. I wake up in the morning
well,
and David Hasselhoff stares back at me.
the
So,
reason for that is the Whiffle, my daughter. She goes, "Oh, Daddy, I'm going to brush your hair now." So she brushed my hair, and she literally brushed it flat across
yeah,
the opposite direction I usually have it, and then brushed the other side down. And Shannon came in, and she just said, "Do not wear your hair like that." and she just walked out the room.
Right, okay. So yeah. So is this where you're living now, in this small room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is now my domain.
Not allowed out till you shave your head. Yeah. So we probably should move on to question 3. So we just got to the tip of London. So you came down to London. We moved into a flat together. And we've been to 2 different unis. And then I remember I hadn't seen you for ages.
Yeah,
And
been a few years, hasn't it?
it'd been a while. We've been in touch. I've got some letters, and you know, I'm holding those back. But we then decided that we were going to get flat together. You and I remember we were in that really dodgy, was it Ronaldo's? So we hooked up and ended up there for whatever reason. And I remember you saying to me, because I was saying about moving down to London, you were saying the same thing. And then you said, oh, well, if it works out at the same time, we'll get a flat together. And that's exactly what we did. We got a flat together with a couple of friends of yours from uni. And a few of mine moved in round the corner. And yeah, we sort of started a little community.
Well, that flat was amazing because it's actually really interesting how many of like now my friends moved down to London and stayed with us in that flat.
Well, Max lived on our sofa for about what feels like a year. I'm sure it was less than that, but he just lived in our kitchen.
Max lived with us. Steve lived with us. Dave Paxton came down for a bit.
Brett did very briefly. Ian Glover. Jez did. Chris did right at the end, just before we moved out. I remember Chris came to stay. Everybody circled, but it was quite good because we were the first ones down there, like us 4, me, you, Paul, and Robin. And it was quite good because like people would. I mean, the flat wasn't that great, but we had a bit of space.
I think my mum described it as a hellhole, and I believe Dad, when we moved out, described it as a Watchdog episode waiting to happen.
Yeah, that was all in the descriptor of the flat when we went to see it.
It was so cheap.
I'll never forget the day this is going to be boring.
It's probably about £3,000 a month now.
I know, but it's funny. It's just going to bore anybody who's listening. So fast forward this bit. But I'll never ever forget the day that they came back round to give us our deposits, and we'd cleaned the whole place out, and everything was fine except where we'd have a sofa in the kitchen, and in the middle of the room was a massive hole where we'd worn it through the floor, and it was clearly a repair job, right? It was clearly a repair job. There was no way that we were going to get all our deposits back. And we were all stressing over what we could do. We couldn't put anything over it. Couldn't put the sofa over it because that was ours. We'd moved it out and all that stuff. So we were just like, we're just going to have to suck it up. And I'll never forget, our landlord was behind me. You were in front of me. And as you walked in, you just you just stood on the hole so no one could see it. And he came in, he was like, yeah, that's great. Gave us our deposits and off we went. And I just remember you standing there going, yep, here it is. It's all fine. Meanwhile, there was a crime happening. But anyway, good memories. It was a good place. We had some good laughs in that place. I think the third night that I came back from work, I remember walking down Holloway Road and it was very quiet. And I thought, oh, it's a bit weird. It's normally quite busy because it's like, sort of tailed onto the A1 and there's all lots of traffic and stuff. And then I looked up ahead and there was a SWAT guy kneeling down behind a wall. And then I looked to the left over the road and there were 2 more SWAT guys, one with a riot shield. And I just sort of casually walked by and went into our flat. I remember saying to Paul, I was just like, I think they're raiding a crack house next door. And then, and I think then there were a few bangs and it was all over. But
evening officer.
Good times. Yeah, evening officer. He's like, you're blowing our cover. But anyway, good times. So
we moved down to London.
Yeah. And then, moving on to, first job in London, we spoke about how you got it, why you chose it. I mean, obviously.
Well, actually, kind of, because when I moved down to London, I didn't actually have a job nailed on.
Yeah.
So it was,
gone. But at that point, was it still hearsay? A kind of like, it's a possibility, but it's not.
Gone back to the folks, and like you did with Beresford, I got back in, and I'd been in touch with Uffandale, numerous times anyway, because I had a good crack and they invited me back for a couple of times to do play on their 5-side football team and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a bit of freelance, or what we would call freelance, but really is just kind of like pity money for students.
Yeah.
So they got me in, and so I was doing a bit of freelance there, and
So they found some work for you, basically. They didn't have to do that.
So come in. We need an extra pair of hands. Come on in.
Yeah.
So I was doing a little bit of freelance there, but I was commuting from Peterborough, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. So that's when we got the flats.
We got the flat. Yeah.
And I was doing a bit of freelance, and I've been touting my book, my book around.
Yeah.
So I had some really good interviews, or had some really good meetings, and nothing bad, no crying or anything.
Yeah.
I was starting to get a bit worried, and then I had an interview at a company called Hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
A company called Agenda. It was Agenda Design.
Agenda. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Agenda's still going.
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about them for ages.
They didn't hire me. That's
it. Yeah. Yeah. They would have gone under much eurlier. Could have saved themselves a lot of pain.
I went down to it because they were down in South London at the time. They were down on the south, off in the South Bank. So I went down for a meeting or an interview. Got on really well with the creative director there. Can't remember the name of the chap now for the life of me, which I feel really bad about. But anyway, it's really good. And then they phoned me up the next day and they offered me the job. They said, "Oh, we'd really like you to come and work for us." They showed me around the studio. It was a really nice environment. They had some really cool clients and some really cool stuff. I was really excited. I was like, brilliant. So I went to my then creative director at Uffendale, Gary, because I got on with him really well. I said, "Oh, Gareth, it's been really good. I've been offered a job from this company called Hieroglyphics, who I'd also been to see the night before or whatever. Yeah, they want me to start. Awesome, got a job. Yeah. Also, Agenda, they want me to go and work for them.
Okay.
I'm really made up." And Gary goes, "Oh, that's really good, John. Really well done." So then I get back on doing my work, and then Gary comes up to me about half an hour later, and he goes, "Oh, John, can I just have a quick word?" So I said, "Yeah, no, Gaz came over, went over to his desk, and he goes, no, went over into the cutting room where we did all mock-ups. Yeah. And he goes, I want you to come and work for us. So I'm going to offer you the job, but I want to know by the end of the day."
Okay. Yeah, cheers. There's nothing like a bit of pressure. You're like, oh, yeah. Okay. But that's good though. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really made up. I was really pleased because I'd gone from like a bit of freelance and hoping for the best and living in a hovel with you losers.
I remember when you were freelancing for them, because I can remember like you doing like illustrations on your laptop on our social kitchen and stuff. I really remember that. It's a funny time that when you do that sort of transition, because like that's the one thing that I do regret. Even though I did end up in a company that I really loved, and I got on really well with everyone there, and I had a great time. It was a brilliant first job. And I learned a lot there. And it subsequently is, like one of the guys who I worked with there was one of my best men at my wedding. And, so you end up making these connections with people, which are sort of priceless really. But the one thing I do regret about that time is that I didn't go anywhere else. I didn't go for any other interviews. I didn't put my book anywhere. I just literally went to the place where I did my placement, because they'd already said, we'd like you to come and see us when you finish. So I literally finished and turned up on the doorstep and was like, "I'm ready," and then they were like, "Okay." And then I just started. It didn't turn into anything. And I kind of felt that maybe I should have looked around a little bit more at that point. I'm glad I ended up where I did, but I feel that like there was about a year or two later, I thought maybe I should have pushed it in,
you just playing the grass is always greener on the
exactly. But at that time I was just so pleased to have a job. I couldn't believe it. I literally finished college, and then on the Monday, on the Friday, and then on the Monday I went home, packed my bags, and then on the Monday I was in London, working in the middle of Oxford Circus. So like, living in a hovel with you
until we got the flaps. I remember that. So from my point of view, they Uffendale offered me the job, and kind of I was really torn because I really wanted to go to Agenda because I really liked the vibe and like the kind of work they were going there. Yeah. But I decided to go with Uffendale, because I really liked Gary, who's the creative director there.
Well, they've been good to you as well,
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And I enjoyed the work and I enjoyed the team, and it was kind of like, whether it's Better the Devil You Know or whatever, I don't know whether it was, but I just felt like it was a good fit for me. Yeah. And it did, and it was great, and I had a great time. Yeah, it was really good.
And why did you end up leaving there then? What happened with it? Because you were there. How long were you there for?
So probably about 2.5 years in total. I was at Uffendale West. So I had a great time. Started as a junior designer, but within kind of like a few months, I was being left to work on projects by myself or lead projects on by
Yeah.
myself, client
And that's
meetings.
something that comes from being in a smaller team. You know, if
Absolutely.
you'd have been in a
And that's,
bigger company, I mean, like a friend of ours was working at Springets at the same time that I
yeah,
started where I was, and you started where you were, and he was in like a massive team where his responsibility was pretty low for the first sort
yeah.
of 12 to 24 months,
And that's
whereas
something
like
I was,
where you and I started, it was like, here's your project,
yeah,
right, see
get
you
on with it.
Friday, you know.
And that's what I always tell, either students or junior designers that we meet, or whoever it may be. It's like, yes, it'd be great to have like that massive name on your CV for your placement or whatever, but if you actually want to learn what you're doing and
Yeah,
have experience and stuff, go to those little agencies. All
yeah,
the little
yeah,
agencies who we, at 77, we always treated, even any interns or whatever, we always treated them as a designer. Their ideas are as valid as ours. They might not have the
yeah.
full skill set or experience or whatever,
Oh yeah.
but they're going to pick that all up, and we expect them to. So we will show them how to do that, and
Yeah,
you
well,
just get exposed to them, and
we
it
would
makes
have
you more rounded
placements
person.
that would come up with some cracking ideas. You know, they'd
Yeah,
be like kind of like 18 years old, and there I'd be like sort of 23, and they'd be like senior designers and stuff, and there'd be like some kid just coming up with absolute gold, you know, and you'd be like, you're annoyingly talented, let's get rid of you.
yeah.
But
That's,
yeah, that's what I
that's
like about the
what I
industry.
mean.
It's not, you know, it doesn't matter what skill set you have in terms of your technical capabilities. You know, if you're creative in that way, you can be 15 or 50. You know, it cuts through all of that, and I really like
Well,
that. You know.
that is the key thing. The key thing that I've always done with my studio, the key thing that I've always told any students, interns, designers, whatever it may be, is I don't really care whether you're really good at Photoshop or whether you know
Yeah,
all design keyboard commands or whether you're a whiz on Illustrator or
yeah,
you can program a WordPress site or build an app. Or I don't really care about those. Yes, it's important that those technical skills are at a sufficient level,
yeah,
but that's not what I'm employing you. I'm employing you for your ideas,
mm,
and I'm also employing you. And beyond that, there's two folds. There's the ideas, but there's also being able to talk about your ideas and have that opinion. Because
yeah.
essentially,
Communication, yeah, definitely,
yeah,
yeah,
a client comes to us with a brief saying, "Oh, I have this problem, and this is the problem. This is my audience. Blah 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 blah. This is," and you come away, you think about it, and then you come back with solutions for how to solve that problem.
mm.
Very, very simple. So that's part of it, but it's also being able to explain your problem.
Yes,
So
yeah,
the way that we always used to talk about it is, it's like, I'm paying you to have an opinion. A client is paying you to have an
yeah,
opinion
yeah,
about what they should be doing. And if you don't have an opinion, or you can't explain that opinion,
yeah.
then you shouldn't be doing this job. It's
Yeah, yeah.
really,
You
it
need to be
really is.
articulate, and that is, you know, I've seen really good designers that aren't, you know, their communication skills aren't
Absolutely.
very good in, you know, in meetings or in like in trying to get their ideas across to people, and it's so frustrating because you've got someone who's really good, and yet
Mm.
they can't quite, you know, there's nerves about whether they're doing the right thing, or you know, there's a lack of confidence there, which I guess you do
We've
get that in time, but you know,
Possibly. I mean, we've advertised for designers before, and we like you get the kind of like portfolios and CVs and stuff sent in,
mm,
and like we've sat there and gone, "God, look at this person there. She's really good," or this bloke's really ace. Look at that
yeah,
design. That's lovely. And then we get them in for an interview, and and we're all quite relaxed. It's not like it's like formal, boardroom and
mm.
sitting behind a desk and spotlight or anything. It's all
I'm
really
assuming
quite.
that at this point you're in like a throne at the back of the room in the dark while they're being
Just
interviewed.
Yeah, I'm usually just wearing a velour tracksuit.
Please tell me you're on one of those. What are those things called? Where you've the segways, you know, with the wheels in them.
Just a segue. And why did you choose blue?
Yeah. Do you have any Rolf Harris colouring pens? Yeah. So.
We've had people in whose books are amazing,
Mm,
and then you sit them down, and they're like just chatting to them. They're really nice people and what have you, and they
yeah.
go, "Oh right, so I really love what you did with this idea for this identity or whatever it may be. Take me through your thinking." And I remember this one guy just goes, "Oh, I don't know, I just came up with it." And I thought,
He's
mate,
going to be my business partner.
yeah, mate, come on. For a start,
Mm,
yes, we all just come up with stuff, but there must be a reason why you came up with stuff. But
yeah.
don't respond like that. Just don't respond.
Yeah,
You've
yeah. It's not. It's
got to
not
be able to
good.
explain. Yeah, because if you can't explain the idea, then there's no point having the idea.
Mm.
You know, because
Yeah.
you could show I'm sure you've done it. You've come up with some cracking designs for a client on a specific job, and the clients just put their bum face on and said, "Oh, I don't like blue."
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and that
Yeah. I've been in that. Yeah.
and that just kills the meeting. What have you?
Yeah.
Whereas our philosophy, what we always used to say to clients is, doesn't matter if they don't like blue. If
Mm.
you can say, well, I take on board that you don't like blue, but the reason why we've used blue is this, 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 and this, and you can
Yes.
explain why. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
hard to argue against an idea. It's very easy to argue, I don't like blue.
Yeah. So that's where the division
yeah,
between personal preference and
yeah,
answering the brief comes along, and they cross over all the time. But yeah, I've had a few of those meetings where you've got, like, people sort of stick their heels in, and they want it one certain way, and that's fine, because then you end up you end up compromising. Always right.
it's the point that I made earlier. It's about they're paying for my opinion. So,
Mm.
my opinion, my design experience, my blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah, is saying that this is the correct approach for what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Answers your brief, does exactly what you need it to do. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
If you don't want that, that's absolutely fine. That's your decision. It's your business. You're the client.
Yeah.
But this is my recommendation, and
Yeah.
you go from there.
I've seen that bomb in really badly in a meeting with I was doing a presentation with another design company. They were doing the branding, and I was doing a whole load of like promotional point of sale stuff, and I pitched all my point of sale stuff, and it had gone down quite well. Like, point of sale's fine, it folds nicely, like, it looks, the colors are good, it works, it fits, it's an easy sell, it's tactile, they're all passing these things around. And then this, I won't name who it was, but this person then presented the rebranding, and we're talking about a room of like 20 people. Oh, no, I don't think you do know. Maybe no, I don't think you do. I've said her now. So she presented this work and absolutely bombed. Like, literally, 20 people were just hammering questions at her, and she couldn't handle it. She got to a point where the conversation came down to, why is it purple? And her answer was, it just is. And then at that point, I was just like, you've got to compromise, or find a middle ground somewhere, because obviously, or defend your position better. Because
we've all been rattled in meetings and stuff. I've been rattled in meetings. And stuff like that before. But if you've got an idea and you've got a reason for that idea, and you've got an explanation for that idea, then it's easier. Yes, you can get rattled, they can shout at you or whatever, but you can just go back going, it's this, 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 and this.
Yeah,
and then,
sure. And ultimately what ends up happening is that, I've had experiences as well, which is, people walk away from the meeting, and then the next day, actually, it is all fine. And actually, that is the route we want. And actually, they've spoken to their colleagues, and they've had time to chew it over. And, so, yeah, I mean, and also, sometimes you're wrong. You design something, you do it, you present it, and halfway through presenting, I've been like, yeah, I'm not sure about this one, actually, and I think that's what it's all sort of subjective. It might solve the brief,
absolutely.
But sometimes
anything creative is subjective, and anything creative is slightly a risk. Even doing kind of like those real dull kind of like little leaflets for companies, for whatever it may be, it's still being creative and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
No one wants to be told they're rubbish. No one wants to be told.
So the last part was, what was the most important thing you learned from your first job?
Couple of little things. Well, not little things. Couple of things. The main couple of things that I learned from my first job was, and I kind of alluded to it before, is there's got to be an idea. Whatever the client brief is, whatever the problem, whatever your solution, whatever your design,
however badly done, or however well done.
Exactly, it doesn't matter. The visualization skills of me as a fresh out of uni compared to the skills and software that we now have available. It's kind of like you look at student books these days. Student books look like blooming finished products and things like that. You go,
yeah.
It's all that's the skill set. That's one thing, and that's important to have. But I think if there's no idea, then there's no point presenting it.
Yeah,
because if it's just not out of substance, then this time in 6 months' time, that style is going to be awful, and people are going to laugh and point at you, and it's going to be. But if there's an idea behind it, then it's you look back to some of the great graphic designers through the years. I mean, you go back through Paul Rand's kind of like back catalogue. Most of his stuff still stands up because there was an idea behind it, and it is that.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then ego. Don't have an ego. That was one of the key things. Don't think you're special, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. I just mean it's kind of like a job. You can't be. I've known designers who get so wrapped up in it, who are kind of like, this is my baby and it's the most beautiful present thing, and someone say, that typeface doesn't work, can you just change it? And then it's kind of Armageddon or whatever. And you can't have that ego. You've got to be able to take criticism, you've got to be able to refine it, you've got to be able to deal with recommendations, you've got to deal with rejection, you've got to deal with all those things.
That's very true. And
it's
hard. It's hard, when you're out of college and you start your first job and all that kind of stuff. It's hard because it is so personal when you're at college, and suddenly you get thrust into an industry where actually, however good your idea is, it's all down to whoever you're selling it to, or and they might not like it, and that's just the way that is. And dealing with that rejection is part of the course. And actually, I think that's also, like you said, it's an important thing that you take away from it, which is like, people are not going to like the things you like. Not all the time, as you get older and you start to buckle and give in more. You just, you kind of, I guess you end up.
That's a really interesting point that you just made there, though, because it's something that I've thought about, and this is stemming back from when I was at school. Something that our art teacher told like myself and my parents at a parents' evening, that I was a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I was all right at screen printing. I was all right at lino. I was all right at sketching. I was all right.
You were great at screen printing. You were great at all these things.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that in sort of like, I was really rubbish or whatever. It was just like, I was pretty good at all these things. I wasn't excellent. I wasn't the double A student on a particular thing. I was kind of like an A or B on most things.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Like jack of all trades, master of none. And he meant it almost slightly bad, but I don't think he meant it bad, but he meant it in sort of like, perhaps I should be concentrating on one thing.
It's a classic encouragement, a sort of a neg, but also a way to kind of push you along,
as opposed to being scattershot and doing a little bit of everything. Focus on one thing and make that really good. But that stayed with me through my entire kind of like design career, because I actually think a really successful graphic designer should be kind of a jack of all trades.
You
should be so focused. We look with reverence towards some design studios who have a very distinct style. You have like Designers Republic and what have you. I know it isn't their entire back catalogue, but you look at
they have the things that they're well known for has a certain.
You spot a design, you go, oh, Designers Republic, or why not Associates, or to a degree in Pentagram or whatever. So, but the really good designers, in my opinion, are the ones where you don't know who the designer is. But it's good design, or you don't know what the agency is, and it's the agency who's able to adapt to whatever that business is, because you can design for a bank or a blue chip company or a tech company or a pharma company, but you need to be very different depending on who, say you're working with a charity, or you're dealing with a sports club, or you're dealing with a, you can't approach each project for each client in the same way.
That's right.
If you're going into a design with a preconceived, I'm going to do some crazy Japanese type and I'm going to put it on Language and then we're going to do this as blah blah.
That doesn't fit to everything.
And you've got like a hospice who wants like a whole fundraising campaign together to help fund like children who are suffering with cancer. It doesn't necessarily go to.
Why is there a Chinese cat on the side of our building? It's like,
so it's kind of like,
not appropriate always.
It's like, I think being able to slot yourself into different trying to.
You have to be more malleable than just have one focused style.
absolutely.
I mean,
That,
sorry, go on.
no, no,
I was just going to say, like with your style of drawing and how you do illustration, that's something that you can dip into projects when it's appropriate. So
yeah,
you might
absolutely.
have a project and you're like, oh great, I can do some illustration for that. I can do, my style fits with this, or I can adapt my style slightly to fit with this. That isn't every job.
No,
Which is kind of how you are. You're sort of saying that, like, you're sort of being geared towards doing one particular thing, when actually being able to do a multitude of things is is absolutely paramount. Because I know
I think
good designers that have, they can't be flexible like that. They do page layouts and they don't touch anything else, because like they don't feel comfortable, or they don't they don't want to change their particular approach of working. And it's I think
but it
that
goes
that's
beyond the physical design process itself. It's it should filter into being able to understand different businesses, being able to understand
yes.
other influences, what's going on in like the other countries, what's aesthetically appropriate for
Yeah.
this region, what's working in this other region, what's going on with tech that's going to affect this, what's happening with communities, what's happening, this business has a certain way of working, this business I've never understood, how do they make that work, being able to try and understand that, so you can, it's kind of, you've got to be able to slot in. And I think to be a successful sorry, excuse me. I think to be a successful designer in what we do, you need to be able to work with businesses.
Yeah. So you're adapting and you're mimicking because for a short period while you're doing that project, you're running alongside them. You're trying to understand what they do, and you're trying to.
You're essentially an extension of them. I mean, if you're good, you're essentially going to be an extension of that business.
Yeah.
But as a designer, you might be an extension of that business and this business and that business and this business. And, you're having 5, 10, 15 projects on at a time, depending on how busy you are. So being able to dip in and have that ability to do that, I think, is really important. And I think that's something, going back to our early questions about, our education, when did you first start drawing? Well, when did you first start feeling creative?
Yeah.
I think that all feeds back into then, because, we're both, like we were saying, you read comic books, but then thinking about problem solving, but then, we were doing our art courses, and then we were also doing t-shirt printing, and then we were doing, so there's all these different things going on, and all our different interests, whether it be video games, or, we used to play D&AD and all that kind of thing. Or whatever it may be.
They were fun times. Yeah, we were into everything, like kids are. But I think we were, anything creative like that. Any chance to write something or draw something, I think that, like, you sort of latch onto it, don't you? Question 5 was, so what did you do next? So after you finished because you were at Uffindale West, and did you go to another company after that?
No, see, this is the beauty of our industry. So I was done 2 years at Uffindale West, and you get to meet lots of people. And one of the account directors that used to that was working at Uffindale West, she got the opportunity to become the director of marketing for a new architects firm. Well, it was an existing architects firm.
Yeah.
It's been going donkey's years, and they'd just been bought by another architects firm who had bought another architects firm. And basically, a load of architects firms from around the world kind of joined together and bought each other to create what at the time was the world's largest architectural practice.
Right.
And it just had a massive rebrand done, not a very expensive rebrand, a bit rubbish in my opinion, but they just had a massive brand all kind of done and what have you. And she had been brought in to kind of be the director of communications and marketing, what have you. And she needed loads of the implementation doing, but they didn't want, because it was all going through the London office didn't want to pay the large exorbitant amount of money that the agency that had done the branding were going to charge them for all the implementation. Fair enough. So she kind of like tapped me up and said, Johnny, do you fancy doing a bit of freelance? And I said, of course I do, because I'm young and stupid and what have you. So I was doing a bit of freelance for her on site, bit of exhibition design, brochures, stationery,
Which, let's
And
face it, I mean, you're not getting paid loads of money at that point. You know, you're
no, I
getting a
wasn't-
salary, but it's not,
yeah,
you know, I mean, I started on virtually nothing, and like it was enough because I was just happy to be working, you know, but at that point, like any freelance you can get outside of your job is a
cool.
total bonus, you know. It's
So
yeah.
yeah, so that was really good. But at that point, the dot com bubble burst.
Yeah,
So
okay.
up until then, up until West, there was like the whole design industry seemed like it
Yeah.
was awash with work and money because there was all this money being ploughed into
Yeah.
all these new tech startups that were going to be
Hmm.
amazing, that were making no money whatsoever, but
Yeah.
were going to be amazing. And there was all this money everywhere, and they needed designs and stuff and things and what have you. So it was all
Yeah.
great, going 100 miles an hour. And then literally in a day,
Yeah.
it just stopped.
I remember.
And, our agency kind of all of a sudden was like, ooh, and some people got made redundant.
Hmm.
And then literally about a couple of weeks later, I got made redundant. And I was like,
Right.
oh, bollocks, what am I
Yeah.
going to do? But I'd been doing this freelance with Valerie on the side,
Mhm.
and there was an opportunity to do more. So fortunately for me, it was like, I've got a ready-made client. I've got
Yeah.
ready-made work here.
Yeah.
Why don't I give it a punt by setting up by myself?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
that,
good. Yeah.
that was
That's
really what it was.
Yeah, that's good. And you know, that opportunity, it's funny how those opportunities can sometimes be like a quick job and you're done, or they can spiral into here's a series of work that could potentially keep you going. And presumably you were probably getting paid more for your freelance, what, hourly or daily or whatever, than you were for your full-time job.
I
So
don't think I was, to be honest. I think I was insanely cheap because I was
yeah.
stupid. And I'd started off doing like a few bits and bobs as a bit of a
Yeah.
favour to Valerie, just to
Okay.
help
Yeah.
her out until she got stuff sorted, and then more and more came, and
Yeah.
then we started to cost it up. And I think it all evened itself out though, because it got to the point where we managed to become a bit retained with the
Okay.
company for a few years, for a little
Ah,
while,
the
which
dream retainer. What happened to
was a
that?
dream retainer.
I
So
remember those days.
we were, I was being involved in kind of like not necessarily board level meetings, but just below board level meetings when we was dealing with the day to day design and how
Yeah.
the brand move and stuff like that. So that was really good.
Yeah.
Um, but we did a massive amount of work for them. I mean, generally did massive amount of work, and and then Valerie subsequently went on to, as you'll know, you work with some really good people, and you have a really good working relationship, and sometimes they'll move on to another company and they'll take you with them.
That for me, that's always been the greatest new business. I mean, I've done various new business things before, but for me, the majority of my work always comes through from people that I've worked with before that have moved on to jobs, and sometimes they'll take me with them on day one, and other times it'll be a year or two will pass, and
Yeah.
suddenly they'll be
No,
like, "Here's that project that I've been trying to get to a stage we can do something," you know. So which is nice, you know.
yeah, it's great. So, so the dot com bubble burst. I got made redundant. I had very little money in the bank because I remember I just before I got made redundant, I decided to buy the new Apple iPod.
Oh, okay.
The iPod that had just been
Yeah.
released. That was
Okay.
like
Yeah. They were really
like 500
expensive.
quid for it, and I'd spanked all my money on that and a push
But it's
bike.
okay because you could put 4 songs on it.
I know, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it
And
was
it was
only
like the size of a car
brick.
battery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And weighed about the same.
amazing piece of kit.
Yeah.
Even now, it's still an amazing piece of kit.
But at least
So
when you're at home crying, you've got your iPod to listen to.
I had a crying playlist. So
Listen to The Cure a lot that summer. Yeah.
I had I had this freelance, which I knew would keep me going, and a bit of severance from being made redundant. So I
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
that I had at least a couple of months worth I could cover rent and stuff in London.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't I just give it a punt? Why don't I give it a punt of like setting up a business and giving it a go?
Yeah.
And who I set it up with, Paul. I mean, you know Paul really well.
Well, he's one of the original London Four.
Yeah, he
The
is.
Archway Four.
So I'm for the benefit of your one listener, I met Paul at university. We were on the same course, moved down to London. He worked at a company called Microdot, who did lots of really cool stuff, such as they did all the Oasis stuff and Super Furries and what have you, and he worked for them. But Paul was getting a bit frustrated with his job at the time, for lots of different reasons. And I kind of like said, "Come on, why don't we set them together? We've got this client, got IDUS, they're
Yeah.
going to give we've got X amount that are going to be able to do with that. And, I'm sure, with what was going on with it, where he was at the time, there were some opportunities there to possibly get some other clients.
Yeah.
And, we were, what was it, it was 2002, so we were
Yeah,
25.
you were really young still. I remember, like, because I finished one job and I was just starting another as like a sort of more middleweight designer. And I can remember you guys starting a business, and at that time I was just like,
What did
how do
it?
you do? How would you even think about doing that? I can't. It can't. I didn't. Firstly, I didn't feel prepared enough to go it my own. I was doing freelance work with some bits and pieces, but I didn't feel confident enough to go out. I guess you'd already been doing some work that you thought could sustain you for a while anyway, and that was slightly different. Whereas that for me at that time, I'd have been like just starting from nothing and being like, right, how do I do this, having not
I
ever
mean,
done it,
to be honest, Chav, I don't think I really gave it as much deep thought
No,
as that. I
that's
think
why it worked though, because if you overthink it now, it won't work. But when you're like 22, 23, you're just like, this is just
I
what
think
we're doing,
I
so.
have a deep down belief or confidence in my own ability.
Mm,
I like to think that I'm pretty good at what I do. I'd like to think that I'm pretty good with people. We can get on
yeah.
quite well. And a couple of years at Offendell were really good for grounding me in sort of like how to do stuff, how to be a bit more professional, because they were dealing with blue chip clients. We had to be
Hmm.
that little more, even though it was
Yeah,
good, you had to be a little bit more. So
less flares.
yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Not
Having
completely gone, just less. Yeah.
having that kind of balance, and then having what then was the safety net of a client that I could bill
Yeah,
several £100s a month, which at the time was awesome.
yeah, yeah,
And I'd already had a laptop,
yeah.
which
So
I bought
you were
off
set.
freelance that
Yeah,
I've been doing before. It was kind of like, well, there's nothing else going on. The dot com bubbles burst.
yeah.
Loads of people being laid off.
Well, I remember Razorfish going under. They were
Yeah,
massive. Do you remember Razorfish? They were
because of my
massive, weren't they? And then literally overnight, they just went out of business.
overnight.
I remember.
There was quite a few like that actually, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
a lot of web
So
design companies that were charging massive amounts for not
took
doing
amounts of
very good
really
work.
outlandish, crazy websites that kind of
Yeah,
only worked when you had like an ISDN line at the top.
yeah, yeah, it's some
Crazy.
craziness, but
But yeah, so I just kind of it kind of just felt like the most natural thing to do, really.
yeah,
And my philosophy and like Paul and myself's philosophy for it and was for I've been doing 77 for about 18 years now, was
mm,
that if it doesn't work out, I'll go and get a job.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
and so that doesn't really fundamentally change. So it was kind of a
That's
bit of
still the backup plan, by the way.
yeah, it
That's
is still
exactly how I feel it, which is like,
yeah,
if it all goes, if it doesn't
if
work
it goes
out,
well,
or, you
I'll
can
get a job.
always start looking for a job.
Kind of decided to crack on with it. And speaking to Paul over a couple of weeks, well, we were living together, so it was quite easy.
Yeah.
And then I remember finally, Paul and myself finally deciding, yes, this is what we're going to do. We were at a Martin Parr exhibition in the Barbican.
No.
As
That was a
part of
good exhibition. Yeah.
it was a really good exhibition
Yeah.
actually. It was, and you got served those kind of like weird martinis,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the cherry martinis, or whatever they were. And we had a couple of those. And I said, "Come on, Paul, let's do it." And so I said, "Yes." And that's how
So you
1977.
got him drunk and then he said, all right, I'll do it.
No, no, not at all. He wined and dined me. He took me out. He
Yeah.
put together a very
He bought me an
compelling
amazing
proposal.
dress.
Amazing business proposal.
He had his PowerPoint proposal with him. We went through it.
But we just
Uh,
thought we'd give it a go, and and we gave it a go. And
Well, it's good that you did, because I think that was like, for me, as someone who was working full time. At that time, I was working deepest South London. I was in Chislehurst, so I was commuting right out of London at that point. Seeing you guys set up was like quite inspiring for me, because then I suddenly thought, well, actually, that's something that I've always
those
thought.
idiots can do
Yeah,
it.
so I'll see how they get on for the next 5 years, and then yeah. But then it did, because I always thought I'd run something or do something myself at some point, but I wasn't confident at that time to do it. But with you guys sort of pushing on ahead, and the avant-garde, if you like, it was inspiring, and I thought like that was it's a tough thing to do, but actually, like you said, because you just sort of blindly did it, and you just it was just how things worked out. Maybe it
Yeah,
didn't seem so at the time, but if you start talking to people now of that age about potentially doing something similar, I think they'd still be apprehensive
but
up to date.
I always had that in my head though, that I'd probably end up. I mean, it was delving too far deep into the family, but my dad had his own businesses, or had his
Yes.
own business,
Yeah.
and we always did, and his and his dad and what have you. So I think it was kind of kind of inbuilt
Mm.
it to a degree that you just get on and give things a punt. And my mum and dad, love them to bits, were always 100% supportive about anything that I wanted to do. And I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
having that level of support, I mean, we weren't rich or anything like that, and we couldn't always do all the things we wanted to do, but they were always as supportive as they possibly could be. So
Yeah.
growing up, having that base of, if you want to try and do this, try and do this,
Mm.
try and do it, get on, try and do it.
Yeah.
Having that as that kind of thing always stayed with me. So
Yeah.
maybe it never really phased me, like setting up.
Because you just kind of assumed at some point it's going to happen. I'm
Yeah,
moving in that direction.
but it's like, give it a go. No one dies. We're
Yeah.
graphic
Yeah.
design. If I do something wrong, the worst I'm going to have is some badly kerned type. I'm not.
And that's yeah, and that's something actually. Just sort of saying about that. Having that sort of foundation when you're edging towards a kind of slightly artistic career, it is important to have family and friends around you that support you in that way, because it's very easy to kind of wave the hand in that industry and basically say, get a real job, etc., because it's not arty farty, go and go into something, sort of going to banking or whatever. But it is important, and as soon as you have the support of your family, like you're saying, that sort of, like I did, which is, we respect what you want to do and we want to support you as far as you want to take it, then actually the confidence behind that fills you with, it does make you feel like, well, actually nothing's beyond my reach as long as I can get there, so it's it's important.
I think we're very lucky to have had that. Not everybody has that kind of level of
Yes,
support.
exactly. Yes.
Not everybody has that kind of not even support, just sort of like that not ethos, but the kind of like what's the word I'm looking for?
What sort of work ethic sort of thing? Or...
Maybe not work ethic, because I don't want to I don't want to denigrate anyone that has a really good work ethic but hasn't necessarily had the support or the upbringing that I've had, which doesn't necessarily necessitate them to be able to do necessarily what I've been able to do.
Yeah.
It's no barometer. It's more sort of like, because I had that support from my folks in what I wanted to do, but also that ingrained unknown quantity of give things a go. Like my dad,
take a chance rather than be safe.
Took a chance on several things. My dad took a chance on several businesses. Whatever it may be. That kind of stuck with me, and I think that's why I've always tried to do that. So that's why it didn't necessarily faze me. And
but I think also, just sorry to interrupt, but there's something interesting there, because I feel like that is also something that you don't always learn early on, which is your ability to be prepared to fail, right? Because up until you start work, everything you'll do, okay, you might not do so well on some school projects and all that kind of stuff, but like, you don't really ever fail at anything, until you get to a proper job where it matters, and then you can make proper mistakes. And I think a sort of common mistake, a common error that people make is that they don't feel like they should be making mistakes. Where actually at that time it's great to make loads of mistakes. Just get used to the fact that you're going to fail at some things, and then when you see an opportunity come up that is maybe slightly beyond your scope, you're more likely to pitch for it, because you're prepared to fail at it. Whereas if you see something that's slightly beyond you and you think, I won't do that because that's not really what I do, or I'm not.
Our youth, or being younger at the time and relatively inexperienced, definitely helped support that, because because we're not really experienced failure. Being made redundant wasn't necessarily my fault. That was a fault of hundreds of millions of pounds being invested in things that were stupid. So I didn't not have a job because of anything I'd done badly.
Yes.
So I never really was too worried.
Yeah. But then there is also that as well, which is like, being prepared to fail is different to failing. So
the point I was making was Bobbin's point. I actually wanted to, the point that you were talking about, being prepared to fail. I think It's really important.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably make more mistakes now in some of the other things that I'm doing.
Well,
than I've ever
listen. This podcast is a mistake.
done. Yeah, I mean,
It could
case
be a
in point.
mistake. The
Case
case
in
is right.
point.
Yeah, it's literally happening right now. The failure is unraveling before us.
Yeah.
But I think like that's what interests me is like I like sort of trying these little different things. Some work, some don't. But like
Absolutely.
it's okay
If
to.
you don't try, you don't know.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
where's it come from? You can only regret things you've done. You can't regret things you haven't done.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So
True.
you cannot regret not showing your book around London when you were.
That's true. I could not regret that. I do think I
Allowed
probably
to
should
regret.
have. I probably should have. But then, things work out for a reason, and I had a very good, happy time at that point. But
But also, if you had done, could have ended up working somewhere else. You could have gone a very different path, like work-wise.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
would have met different people from a friend point of view. You might not have met your wife. You wouldn't have had your kids.
True.
You'd be in a completely different.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You could be in a really happy timeline right now.
There's an alternate me living in LA.
Yeah.
He's a movie star. He does, Pepsi ads. He's having a great time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alternate me lives there somewhere. Yeah. He's got better hairstyle.
Everything you've done has led you to the point where you are now.
Yes, so. Exactly. Yeah. Which is essentially talking to you about the point where you are at now. So there's a weird convergence of timelines happening. It's a crossing point, I think they call it. So
going back to your question, yeah, I decided to set up a design agency.
So this is my first proper podcast, so 4 hours is fine, isn't it?
Yeah, so we set up the business, and and all the challenges that comes with, challenge number one, learning how to run a business,
sure,
or even how to set up a business, the things that you have to do or thing. So we did that, and it was like Paul himself, and we were going great guns, and we were getting more clients and getting all the work and stuff like that. And then we needed another pair of hands. So then that's when we got our first member of staff in.
Yeah.
And then that opens up a whole new kind of thing, because all of a sudden you've got to do PAYE, and you've got national insurance, and you've got all these other things that you need to consider. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, we need to turn over a certain amount of money this month to not only pay ourselves and the rent and the business rate and the VAT man, but now we've got to pay for the design.
There's a person that's relying on their checks.
Relying on us for and then and that was all fine, and we were really rocking, and it kind of like snowballed. Yeah, and we got to the point where we had our lovely little office in Islington, behind the pub, which was awesome, down by the canal.
Yeah.
I think our highest point we were about the Studio 10, which was pretty good. And
it's really good, yeah.
It was fantastic. We had some fantastic years. And then literally the financial crisis came and completely took the wind out of the whole design industry. I mean, you must remember it, like 2008.
Yeah.
It was just like 1 minute, everything's rocking along, and you got loads of work coming in, you got loads of clients. You're thinking, oh, just look at this year's turnover. Crikey, that's bonkers. We're doing this, we're doing that. Should we? We were looking at, do we buy an office space?
Rather than renting, because it's expensive. Yeah,
exactly. We were starting to look at different avenues, and we was trying to think about, well, how could we expand the business beyond what we're doing as a design agency? What other avenues could we look at and stuff like that? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it was just this subprime mortgage nonsense fiasco just completely took the whole wind out of everything. And it really did grind. I mean, I think over the space of about 2 weeks, I think we lost 50% of the business.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Sort of like, as in, we lost 50% of the money that we had.
No, it's just
our turnover went.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and because suddenly everyone's holding on to the I guess a little bit like now, which is like clients are sort of less. I mean, I know you've experienced this like I have, which is like, your normal working week has definitely changed in the current environment, because people are scared, and maybe half of the people you're working for are furloughed, and and people don't want to spend the money, and
people they don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly, yeah. And when it's just one or two of you working, that's fine. But when you've got an office full of 8 to 10 people, and you've got other commitments like your property and all that stuff, it obviously it must have been. Was it scary then? Did you suddenly think
it wasn't necessarily scary? It was just really, well, it was proper stressful. I mean, I look back at
Yeah.
it now. At the time, I didn't feel particularly badly stressed about it
Yeah.
because Paul and myself were always really cautious. We always made sure that we had a good buffer available to cover stuff.
Yeah.
And we did still have work on, and there was still work that needed to be done and what have you. So we were still getting some income. But looking back at it now, I was proper stressed. Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really, really, really stressful because though we did have some work on, we were chasing like absolute beasts to
Yeah.
maintain.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We were at the time we were so adamant that we didn't want to make anybody redundant. We didn't want to lose
Yeah.
any. So we literally for probably 6 to 8 months,
Yeah.
we kept everyone as we were, just trying
Just
to
kept
wipe this out.
weathering the storm. Yeah.
We'll use our buffer. We'll use our resources.
Yeah.
We'll just keep it going.
Yeah.
And then it got to almost a year in, and things weren't really yet recovering, as you remember. And we ended up having to make the odd redundancy here, which is really horrible.
I can't imagine what that must be.
Especially when you're in a small, close-knit team. When there's only 6 to 10 of you, you know each other really well.
Yeah,
you know what you're doing.
You spend time outside the office together.
Exactly, we're hanging out at
socialising.
the pubs. We do things, events and or whatever it may be. You get to really know people, and then all of a sudden to have to go through a redundancy situation, which was really horrible. It's just not nice. So we got all through that, and then Paul and myself, we hit 10 years of 77, which was 2012. And we just had to sat down and we looked at the business and we looked at what we were doing, and we found we were just chasing work for the sake of having work, for the sake of
just surviving,
having the studio, paying the VAT, paying the business rates, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we just thought, well, we've done 10 years, what else? How else could we do this? And we were both a bit stressed, and we both wanted to do additional things.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how do we do that? So that's when we decided to get rid of everybody.
Yeah.
We got rid of all of our staff. We got rid of the office. We got rid of all of our fixed overheads. We got rid of.
You made the right choice. It's a difficult one, but that's where things stop being personal. It becomes about business, and you had to do that. Because
it was actually at that time. By that time in 2012, it wasn't necessarily about the business because we were going all right. Our turnover was pretty good and stuff like that. But we just started to lose not the fun of the job, but it was a bit of a treadmill, it felt like, because we were just having to get work to be able to pay and maintain.
Yeah.
So you weren't necessarily having as much fun with projects. You were dealing with clients. You'll have had clients who aren't particularly that nice to deal with, or aren't particularly friendly or appreciative, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or take up way too much studio time for the amount that you can actually build them.
Yeah.
So it gave us the opportunity to readdress the work-life balance.
Yeah.
So I'd gone from literally 60, 70 hours a week solid for almost 10 years in the studio to being able to be a little bit more flexible and have a little bit more of a life, and that's been brilliant. Being able to change the relationship between my work time and my personal time.
Yes. And also when you're under it like that, when you're seriously busy and you've got things that you need to pay and you've got all that stuff going on, like everything else does fall by the wayside, and you become very focused on that. And like you said, like doing long hours, and that's fine every now and again, but you can't maintain that for a long period of time because you just end up making yourself like ill, or you end up like, it's not good for your mental health either. You just need to come, but which is why it was the right decision to do that, as difficult as it was.
We became what is now the cool de rigueur term as an agile studio. This was 8 years ago. I remember we did an interview in the DVA magazine all about us no longer having a studio but still being a studio, and to explain how we could be this flexible unit where we pull in people as we need them depending on the project. We had a shared space up in King's Cross which we used for a bit, and it was really good. And so we did.
That's essentially my business. That was essentially still my business model.
It's a lot of business models now. A lot of you speak to a lot of design agencies. you think, oh, they're going to have a big swanky office, or they're going to have this, or they're going to have that.
Yeah.
And often it's like only two or
Yeah.
three, maybe four of them. They're in a WeWork or similar,
Yeah,
or
or
work.
even that. Mostly, I mean, especially now working from home, there'll be more agencies having, not going back to offices when this all kind of like levels out, because
Which I think
uh,
is actually a bit of a shame, because
yes,
the
yeah,
other side of the coin, even though it was brilliant being able to be more flexible and working in a shared environment when I wanted it, or working from home when I didn't, or
mm,
working wherever I wanted, is brilliant and has been great.
yes.
There is something really good about having a studio with
The
your team.
collaboration element is something
Yeah,
that you
you
can't
can't
get that
recreate
over
that.
Skype and
No, you
Zoom,
can't.
and you can't. You have to be in a room with people to fire
Yeah,
off ideas, and I must admit, having worked by myself for a long time now, I do get freelancers to work with me on various jobs, but again, we don't work in the same room together.
no.
We have conversations over the phone because one guy lives in Scotland, and so like it's all it's just there is an element there that I never really gravitated towards when I did work in larger companies anyway. To be honest, my particular style of working is I tend to be a bit of a lone wolf, and that suits me. But there are times when I think this is a nice project and would benefit from having a larger creative team. Not all the time, but some of the time it would be good. But
I find
yeah,
sometimes it's more just having that extra pair of eyes just to come and have a look at, because you
yeah.
could be going down a route which you think is right, but another pair of eyes comes along and says either that's not right, or have you thought about
Yeah,
this, or no, that's working quite well, but
but it's
I've
taken it's the person who
I've
comes
done
along and takes your good idea and makes it great.
it. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
that or takes your great idea and makes it good. you know
So yeah,
but
so we kind of like started that, doing all that kind of thing, which then freed up our time so Paul could go off and have a and study other things that he wanted to do, and I
mm.
could go off and look at
And
other
by that
projects.
point you'd earned it as well, because you'd done a lot of, you'd run the
And
business.
a hard shift.
Yeah, you'd
Which
done a hard shift. You definitely earned it, so why not have some time for yourself?
we got
And
we got rid of. I would say got rid of. We stopped working with clients who were no longer great to work
yeah,
with.
yeah,
Who were either really difficult or not
hmm
particularly nice,
yeah.
or
But no, with much lower overheads,
yeah.
you
It
have that
allows us to
freedom.
pick and choose. You can be
Yeah,
a little bit picky and choosy about the kind of work
yes,
you've done. So, for I mean, before then, so probably for about the last 12 years, I've been doing a lot of museum design,
yeah,
museum and visitor attraction and stuff like that.
yeah,
And being able to just pick and choose some of those has been really good.
yeah. Yeah, that's good. And also maybe projects you wouldn't necessarily have had the opportunity to work on had
Yeah,
you still had a team of 10 people. You
because
might.
you wouldn't be able to take them on.
Yeah,
I did a
yeah,
little identity a few months back for this tech startup company.
yeah,
Bit of a bonkers idea what they're doing, but I won't go into that now. But just to be able to take that little, they had absolutely balls all money, so I
yeah,
did,
yeah,
they start our whole adage. But I knew them; they were really nice, they were
yeah.
really appreciative. Really got what we were trying to
And
do.
you enjoyed the work as well. So,
Enjoyed the work, and it came together. And
yeah,
because overheads are less, you don't need to worry about, well,
yes,
actually I'm only doing that for this. As long as it covers the time,
yeah.
with a little bit on top to make it worthwhile doing, then you're okay.
Yeah, and the trick with those is to juggle a few of those at once, and
Yeah,
actually it's completely viable. And also, you tend to find that like those smaller companies that do have the smaller budgets, etc., etc., they're much more open for you to
mm.
get creative with your. You present
Oh,
four routes. One of them might be right, and four of them might be totally mental, but you've had the opportunity to push your creativity in those areas that you wouldn't
yeah.
necessarily always have, with those larger clients.
I think if the financial crisis back in the late noughties hadn't have happened,
Mm.
we would have definitely been cranking it up.
You've gone a bit further, yeah.
We were just getting to the point where we were really starting to um, feel properly established, really find our feet, and feel like
Yeah,
we'd started to get involved in slightly bigger jobs
yeah.
again, really well-known agencies,
Mhm.
and felt like we were doing quite well
Yeah,
against that. Didn't get
yeah,
all of them or whatever, but we were getting some of that work, and it would stand up, and we
yeah,
had some relatively good sized clients and stuff, and we did have quite a few plans and ideas about where we were going to go next and what we were going to do. And we were looking at possibly getting a heavyweight designer, creative director kind of role to come in, sort of like to free up Paul and myself to then
so they ran the team.
It's that kind of traditional what lots of agencies kind of do. I'm not saying we were going to do anything groundbreaking or different, but we were looking at
that was sort of the next logical step in terms of moving.
Maybe get a few more people out on the books. Get some.
But essentially, that would have had the same kind of effect that you had from kind of downsizing, which is that it would have freed your time to get a better balance and to spend more time on those jobs that you really wanted to do, rather than not. Let's talk about a piece of design work that you've done that didn't
go very well.
Let's talk about a piece of design work that didn't go well. I put this before the piece of design work that did go well, so it could be the same piece of design work.
The problem I got with this question is I don't know where to start.
So just to reiterate for anyone that's still hanging in there for this final phase, let's talk about a piece of design work that you have done that didn't go well, something you might like to go back and revise or not, and why.
Well, there's kind of like 2 or 3 different answers.
I mean, you don't have to be really specific. You don't want to name any names.
It's fine. I mean, some of the work's a while ago, but there was a client who we got that we kind of like we took the decision quite early in running 1977 that we weren't going to free pitch. Don't agree with pitching, and that's a whole different podcast in its own question.
That's the next one. Yeah, that's
some people like pitching. Some people think it's a really valid thing. Some people don't. Our own personal opinion that we had at the time was that free pitching was wrong. It just turns into a bit of a beauty parade, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I agree.
But we were happy to do credentials pitches or paid pitches. Because essentially paid studio time, blah blah.
Yeah.
So we pitched. Was it a paid pitch? Yeah, it was a really small paid pitch for this production company. And they were going to be producing this new. It was going to be massive, kind of like kids TV show that was going to be huge, and it was like slightly fantasy and all of this thing, and they had these amazing, so we were told, these amazing illustrations that were all the characters, and what they wanted is they wanted this really sleek, sweet kind of like lookbook that was awesome, that they were going to take to the Cannes Film Festival and TV event to sell it, because they were approaching them, they were looking to sell it to like multiple networks, etc. And they wanted to be super sitcom. Went in and met the team there, and they were really nice. There was one guy who was really nice, and then the guy who was the creative guy, he was really nice, but he was like a real typical I'm the creative guy. And we got given all the illustrations and stuff of what they got, and they were fine, they were good, but it was kind of, it was a style. You either like the style or you don't. It wasn't my style, but they were quite nice enough, and what have you. They wanted this cool lookbook, so we gave them this. We put together this really cool option. That was whatever, and they really loved it, but they didn't go with us. They were going with somebody else.
Yeah.
And we got a phone call and went, we're not going with it. Oh, that's a shame. Why was that? Oh, well, it's this other company that we've already worked with. They came in. They can do it. Blah blah. But we really loved your ideas. Okay. Oh well, that's a shame, but respect your decision. Let us know.
Yeah.
And then a week later, we get a call back and they're saying, "Oh no, we want you to do it now. Can you come in and see us?" Right. All right. Okay. So we go in, and really nice. And they really loved our things. So we go, right, here's the stuff. You get on with it. So we put together this masquerade lookbook, using the illustrations. But the problem was the creative guy was a bit of an arsehole, for want of a better phrase. Right. And one of the designers that we had working on it, he worked really hard. Late night, she was working late one night. We were both working on it, and he phoned up and gave her such a rollicking about something that was nothing to do with her job or her fault,
right,
and made her cry. So I had to phone him up the next morning and go, "What the hell was all that about?" And it was about, it wasn't even part of our project. It was about DVD.
Right.
Something that was on the DVD.
So he was just being a diva.
He was just being a diva, and he was just lashing out and what have you. Anyway, so we did all this kind of and it was a really nice book. I was really pleased with the design of it. And we got apprentices at the time who had been using for loads, who were quite high-end printers, and got them to do it. And it was only a short run, so it was a digital job, but it was going to be laminated and all this kind of thing. And they delivered them in like quite quickly. They delivered them, and the print was rubbish. The print was awful.
Oh no!
Really bad. So we sent just a box over to the client and said, look, the printers have done a real bad job here. We're not happy with this.
Yeah.
Show you, but we know you needed to get out, so we've pulled out like 20 of the best ones we could.
Yeah.
So at least you've got something
to tide you over, and
they went absolutely.
Oh no. That just happens. That happens sometimes,
And then so then it became a firefighting case of trying to catch up on ourselves and coming up with different. And we came up with actually a really nice little design solution which solved one of the major printing issues that we had and stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately the thing looked really good, but they really dug their heels in about how they were going to pay for it, and they were only paying for this amount and stuff like that. So if I could go back, that would be one job that I would like to have changed how that had gone, because the most important thing is, like, one of my designers she was properly upset by how they had
that's not good, is it? People just don't understand.
And I think looking back, I was too placating to them. I stood up after they made a cry, but I should have been more firm beforehand.
Sure
that was a failing. I was obviously a bit younger and what have you, and I look back now, I would handle that very differently now. But that's one that I felt bad about.
But then when you're dealing with a client that's unpredictable in that way and is like clearly not quite, it doesn't quite have all the facts of who's doing what and when and why, etc. Like there's no way you can foresee that coming. It's just one of those things where you just think, oh, he's a bit of a dickhead, I'll just crack on.
That's an example of a job that I feel like I could have handled better, as opposed to actually answering the question, which, what's the shittest bit of design I've ever done that I should have gone back to?
Well, there's always going to be be and that's a good one though. That's a good one, because it illustrates people you have to put up with sometimes.
But there are. I mean, you could go back through your whole back catalogue and you could highlight aspects of a job now, and you go, oh,
there's some things I can't look at. There are some things I look at it. If I see it, I'm just kind of like, I can't look at that again. I was sick of it by the time that job had finished. Years go by, I'm like, well, I'm not ready. There's just things, things that I do, like you said, and that only comes with experience. But like
also,
things,
different stages of your career, different experiences, different styles, different clients, different how you handle things differently. You look back at, because otherwise we'd be looking back at our uni stuff and going, oh yeah, that's all amazing. And that's like,
it was. Cheers.
And you're looking at it now and you'd be going, oh god, that's
there's some things that I like from the college years, but like there's some things now I just think
the drinking and womanizing.
The drinking, loads of that. I was too busy studying. You're still listening, Mum. Let's talk about a piece of design work that you are proud of.
So
that you liked.
I'm pretty proud of pretty much everything that's come out of the 77 studio.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a really facetious kind of like, oh, wanky wank kind of way. I genuinely do mean that. I mean, even the work that, or probably especially the work that I wasn't necessarily
the stuff that you took credit for that wasn't yours.
I am genuinely proud of everything that we put out the studio, and I genuinely believe at the time that it's been designed and the brief that we had and the client we had, etc., it stands up. I think what I'm most proud about, though, from a design career point of view, is two things. The first is the working with the people that I've worked with. Paul, obviously, I'm really, really proud to have worked with Paul, but also the designers that we had come and work for us and work with us.
That must have been really interesting, like, discovering those people and working with those people.
I've got so many fond memories of every one of the designers that worked for us. I mean, and several of them have gone on to do some really good stuff, and creative directors of various agencies or set up their own team or what have you. I mean, my first employee now, our first employee, she's amazing, and I've still got such a fond warmth for Chloe, and I'm genuinely proud of how they've gone on.
Yeah.
and how they enjoyed working with us. And I'd like to think that they didn't have too much of a bad word to say about working for 1977 or working with
Have you read her blog?
only the one where she put Paul apart. I haven't read my bit.
Yes. But hopefully
genuinely,
one day she'll look on you and think, "Oh, he needs a job. Come and work for me." What was it you started her on? Yes. We'll start you on a bit less, I think. Yeah.
I think that would probably be one of my proudest achievements.
Those
seeing,
relationships. Yeah.
Seeing. So Chloe, she was our first employee, and she started straight out of uni.
Mm.
And then when she finished with us, many years later, to go on to other things, seeing how she had progressed from this kind of like slightly quiet indie quirky designer girl through to this great designer who has some really strong ideas married to a really good aesthetic and craft, and it was really, and how nice she was as a person, and that goes the same for like Rasheen and Dave and all of the designers that ever worked for us. So that's one of my most proud. And then from a very personal point of view, probably one of my proudest moments was I designed the Wimbledon Museum. So when Wimbledon was
I've seen that, it looks great.
They were doing they rebuilt Centre Court, and as part of Centre Court, they moved all the offices and created a whole new office building, what have you. And I don't know if people have been there, they'll know what I'm talking about. But
Well, I remember. I remember you at the time. I remember seeing you done it, and I also I've been through there since.
And the basement is the museum. It was the very first museum that I'd ever done. I had no idea how to design graphics for museums or any of that kind of thing before. We because we've been working for Wimbledon for quite a while, we got invited to pitch for the work, and we managed to get it, which is great. And doing that, so I was really pleased with doing that. But what was most proud was that my mum and dad, who spoke about earlier, who were really supportive, didn't really fully understand what design was or what I was actually doing. Dad especially, my dad was just a bit
just on the DOS.
he grasp, whenever he goes, "Oh, what are you doing, boy?" And I said, "Oh, I've just done this identity or these adverts." I didn't really fully grasp like that kind of thing. But being able to bring
just to interject there, that's exactly what I've got. Two mums, and one of them always makes me laugh because she'll say, "What have you been up to?" And I'll say, "Oh, I've been doing this thing." And before I have a chance to say anything, she'll say, "I need to talk to you about my gas bill." I'm just like, okay. So she doesn't even get to the stage of me saying anything. It just gets to the bit where I'm about to, and then we start talking about utilities. Sorry, go on.
So, I mean, as you know, my dad had these stroke many years before and was quite severely disabled. So being able to bring them down to London and take them physically got in a taxi with them, and we went to Wimbledon. And at the time, the curator Honor, who I worked really closely with on the museum, she came out and she gave my mum and dad a little tour of Wimbledon, the museum, and walking around there with my mum and my dad and Honor pointing out, and me literally being able to say, "See that, Dad? I did that.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my, from a personal point of view, that's probably my proudest moment, because I could see.
So he connected at that point and was just like, "I get it now."
He kind of really understood it, and that was a really nice, just from a very personal point of view, that was just a really nice thing that I was really proud of. So they would probably be my two most proud things.
Yeah, I mean, great. That's
from a design point of view, I'm not sure I understand. Well, that's what Siri.
Thanks, Siri.
Thanks, Siri.
Sorry, we've got a new caller.
But I think from a purely design point of view, I don't know, actually, to be honest. I mean,
well, the thing is, I think with all those sort of jobs, it's hard to nail one piece of design that you really like, because I always end up liking little bits of everything. There's something in that I like. There's something I like in that. But I like your story about the taking your parents around, because that kind of like it feels like a full circle thing. Then you feel like, firstly, your parents understand what you do. Exactly. Your parents understand what you do, which is the main thing. So you can finally be like, yeah, I'm not a banker, or but this is something that they can understand. It's nice. It's nice to have that stuff, and yeah, I'm sure they were very proud of you when you were in. Did you go in white shorts and take your tennis racket? Were you fully in your? So question 7. No, we've done that one. Question 8.
How many listeners has this podcast got? You got?
Well, it had one. So yeah, this is moving on to sort of more current affairs, which is again, everything. All of these questions I start laughing at the beginning because, again, sorry to keep bringing back the whole kind of lockdown, COVID, people out of work, people furloughed, businesses sort of running on empty, etc. Every one of these questions is basically geared to just the anti side of that. It's like the next question is, what are you doing now, and where would you like to go next?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Jake.
What we're doing now? I'm trapped in my house. Where would you like to go? I'd like to go out of my house. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, the catastrophic pandemic, global issue, crisis, thousands and thousands of people aside. What I'm doing is, still running 1977, still working on projects.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the last larger projects that I've just recently finished with was the visitor attraction at Silverstone. So Silverstone Racetrack has got a brand new museum. It was opened by Prince Harry and Louis Armstrong. Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm tired now. A few weeks back. So I did, did all the graphics for that. So
great.
Rocking. So that's good.
Great. So have you been up to see it? Did you get to go up?
Yeah, no, I went to the official opening, not the royal official opening. So I went to the official opening, which was a few weeks before then.
Yeah.
And had a good tour around, saw all the graphics that we put together and what have you, and client team. I mean, it was a big old client team. That was quite a project. I mean, that was like turned into an 18-month project.
Yeah. I can imagine. I haven't really ever done any large exhibition stuff like that. I've done a few bits and pieces, but nothing like to that scale. So I can imagine the process must take quite a while with that. It's
not the biggest one of them. I mean, it was 30,000 square foot. 30,000 square meters. Sorry, was the visitor attraction space that we've done all the graphics for. The biggest one I did was the National Football Museum up in Manchester. It's in the Urbis building. Designed all the graphics for that, and that's like across 3 or 4 floors, and so that was a really big one. But no, so still doing design. Had a few projects on.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where I think actually I just saw in the news today that they're talking about the sort of relaxing of the social distancing stuff, and people potentially getting back to work, and how quickly can they get people in offices, basically is where that's heading. So who knows what returning to normal will be like after this, but
then going back to the questions.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. No, so the other thing that I've been doing is going on from some of the questions that we had earlier, is that because I've had free time with the change in how I was running 1977, it allowed me to look into doing something else. And that's something else that I wanted to do was I put together a range of kids' books. So
So this is Pop Reads. Right?
Pop Reads books.
Yeah, which are great, by the way. I have a set.
Popreadsbooks.com.
Yeah, I can put it up down the bottom.
They're in Waterstones and Amazon and various other places. Yeah. But so working with the work that 1977 did, we do a lot of sports, leisure, entertainment, music, and what have you. And we did a lot of music work for many years. So we was working with Sony and EMI and Universal, doing CDs and brands and stuff like that, merchandise and what have you. And through that, got really good contacts within some of the licensing departments. So when I had my first daughter, my only daughter, my first child.
Your first child,
you've experienced it. You're reading a book to them, and this was some Scarecrow with a flippy floppy hat, and I was reading it for about the 4th time or whatever. And I was just literally sitting there thinking to myself, why can I not be reading one of my favourite songs as an kids book? And that kind of was a little ding, why didn't that? So immediately next morning, get onto Amazon, trying to find some of my favourite songs that have been turned into kids books, because surely that's done, and it hadn't really been done. So I put together a little proposal, set up went in to see Sony, managed to
So you just generated this idea, and then you went and pitched it to them, essentially.
generated the idea. I worked up a couple of spreads and a couple of covers and sample spreads of a couple of songs.
Yeah.
Using different illustration styles and what have you to illustrate the lyrics.
Yeah, and then, I'd be surprised if there are hardly any design companies or designers that do that. I bet that's a rare occurrence for those things to align in that way.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it was a good alignment. Having contacts or being able to know who to speak to as a starting point, and then did the idea, did branding, blah blah blah, did the designs. And they really loved it, and so I got the worldwide licenses for it, and then so I just had to build that as a business. So I built a publishing business from scratch.
Yeah, because why not? Why not?
Because why not? I didn't know anything. I don't know anything about publishing, but all of a sudden I now do. I didn't know that you had to buy ISBN numbers.
Okay, yeah.
And so
and now you do.
Yeah. Well, I've got more ISBN numbers than I know. But I've got all these ISBN numbers from my books and stuff. And and then learning everything that goes with that. So one thing that I didn't realise was you do your barcodes and stuff. This is aside, but you do your barcodes with your ISBN number and what have you, and got all my books printed and stuff like that. Go to put them on Amazon. Amazon have their own system,
right?
So you have to pay Amazon for them.
Oh, okay, to process your details in it. Yeah, okay.
You can either print out your own stickers,
right,
and cover your barcodes yourself on all of your items,
right,
and supply them to Amazon, or you can pay Amazon to do that for you.
Right. Yeah, sure. Oh, there's I mean, there's a reason that they're one of the largest companies in the world,
Yeah, but going back to what I'm doing now, so I'm kind of like doing pop reads as well, which is trying to get that going. It's very fledgling. I mean, as you know, I did a launch set of 6 books, which are just the first 6 of
which are great, by the way, and the illustrations are all really cool, and it's a really nice idea, and I like that they come with records in them, and it's really
I mean,
good.
that was the fun bit, being able to do the limited edition set that comes with a little 7-inch vinyl of the song,
really cool,
in an interesting way for your little ones and stuff. But I mean, the illustrations I really enjoyed doing, but again, going back to our earlier point about that, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I look at some of the illustrations, and I just know that if I'd have got a good illustrator, a professional illustrator working on these books, on these songs, they'll be 100 times better.
But I mean, you're always going to be your worst critic. I like them. I think they're great, but it's hard when you look at something, you think, if it had been done differently, or if you'd have had like another 2 weeks on that.
One of the premises of what I was doing initially, I mean, I'm slightly changing what I'm thinking about how I'm going to move forward with it. But initially, when I was doing it, the whole idea was that I would brief in illustrators I really like from lots of different fields. So it could be because I mean, I really love what Noma Bar does, from an editorial point of view, and with adverts and stuff like that. I just thought, wouldn't it be awesome to go up to a Noma Bar and say, "What's your favourite song?" and get him to do that.
Yeah. So then the kind of the next evolution of that would be to have a series of different illustrators and maybe photographers as well. The creatives.
That was the idea. It was going to be each book would have its own distinct illustration style done by other illustrators, and the only reason why the first set were done by me is because I have no money to pay anybody to do.
And that's but it has to start somewhere, and they are good. So it's and like we've talked about it before. It takes a while for those things to catch on, and it takes a while for people to kind of become aware of it. And then, like you said, now your books haven't been, but now they are in Waterstones and places like that. And I think that it's just that getting exposure in the market in that way. I mean, it's so competitive. So competitive, but when it does happen and people start absorbing it, then it is a waiting game, I think, with those sorts of things.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm trying to divvy up time between it's a bit harder at the moment because obviously we've got kids and
sure
I'm trying to divvy up time between 1977 and the work that I need to do and have clients and what have you with that, and managing certain projects on there, and breeds
and your own stuff, and I think that's
sometimes I've got more time on one, sometimes I've got less time on the other, and it's kind of.
But the fact is you get to do both, and that's a cool thing. It's
that was quite fun. So again, just gave it a punt.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I really like them. And we'll, yeah, if you want me to do some illustrations for one, if this is a weird way of asking, then I've got time.
I don't think you could afford me.
I don't think I could. I don't think I could. Right, so we've got one more question left, actually, because you get off the question number 10, sort of. But question 9 is about, do you have any advice for anyone starting out in the industry, and maybe something you would have liked to know before you started?
I think anything that I would like to have known before I started, I think the industry has now changed so. Yeah, the industry seems to have changed so much since from when we started, and naturally that's going to happen. But just like technologically, how you can achieve things now, and how design now is much more in the conversation rather than that's something that gets done and then we do this. Whereas now design and everything that goes with that is now so much more ingrained in the conversation with business, with the public. It's ubiquitous. Everyone. When we first started, Apple was still putting out little beige boxes, and they looked like IBMs and
sure, because it was less important at that time. Yeah.
Whereas now, people not so much now, but like only a few years ago, people were queuing for days on end to be able to get hold of the latest iPhone.
I think that still happens. I think London, New York. They're always the queues, aren't there?
So I think from when we first started to now, what I would like to have known back then to what I know now, is it's difficult to say because it's all in the power of hindsight. I think if I was the advice that I would give to anyone that's starting now would be, it sounds really harsh, and I said it earlier on, you're not special.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is it's not personal, and lose your ego. Because as soon as you lose your ego, then you open yourself up to other influences, other opinions, other recommendations, criticism, as well as praise. And as soon as you don't have that ego in place, then it's easier. You present something to a client, they don't like it, and they give you specific reasons of why they don't like it. If you've got ego, you're going to roll up against that, and you're going to bristle. You're going to If you don't have an ego, you can take that on board.
And improve yourself and essentially become better at your job. But
exactly, or you could articulate or go back to them, with weeks, or say, no, actually you're incorrect, or whatever it may be. So I think when I say you're not special, that's how I mean it. It's really about the ego. I also want people to remember that this should be fun.
Yes, well, that's the key, isn't it? Is that you started off, all those years ago drawing on envelopes because it's fun, and now you're drawing on envelopes because you can't get to the shop to get any paper.
You run out of
toilet roll. Just got stacks of envelopes with loads of my old drawings on.
So that, and then I think the other core thing is focus on the idea. Don't worry about the articulation. Don't worry about the media or the medium. Don't worry about how you're going to visualize it. Don't worry about whether it's an advertising campaign, a digital campaign, integrated above the line, below the line, through the line, under a line, over a line, on a washing line. Don't worry about any of that. It's all about the idea. And if the idea is sound, then
everything else falls into place, doesn't it?
You can push and prod it wherever you need it to go, or wherever is most appropriate for what the client needs and what the client is. So it's all about the idea. And I think
this is good advice. This is good advice, John.
Thank you. I think the last thing would probably be learn all those really cool brand buzzwords that seem to be going all the time.
Yeah.
So, people say brand a lot, and I think you need to make sure that you can say brand
as much as possible.
And as much as possible, and maybe say it in an interesting way that people haven't heard it before. Maybe throw in some adjectives with the word brand to make it all sound super, super cool.
Hip and trendy, as the kids say. I think they still say that. Yeah. So that was like the last question, because like the 10th question is actually the last question, which is you to give me a question to ask the next poor sorry soul that comes on this podcast. And it can be design related, it could be personal,
Well, I
it
mean,
could be
again,
offensive.
obviously in the current situation of we're in lockdown and stuff like that, it would be, oh, so what's the first thing you're going to do when you get out of lockdown?
Ah,
But
that's a good question. Yeah.
and then the other question would be, why are you talking
Work from home.
yeah, work from home.
Yeah.
Well, I think thinking about it, I think there's lots of questions that you could ask that would be really interesting. But one of the things that I've been looking at, because I'm quite into my tech and stuff. I like little gadgets. I like
Yeah.
tech. And
Bit of wireless charging. We talked about that earlier. Yeah.
That was a rock and roll conversation. But I'm very much interested in technology and how things are looking. And like, to the extent Paul and myself did an identity, brand strategy and an identity for a race course that never got built, but it was close to being built. They had the design for the track and everything like that. So the identity that we created took the outline of the track, and then we applied various different data points to that within this computer program, computer model, which then interpolated, like distorted it and blew it, flared it, and all this kind of thing. So the idea being that we had a constantly evolving identity that was based on actual real life data, because you could feed in data from average speeds, corner.
And it just created these interesting shapes.
And it created all of these, all based on the track. And the idea being is that if you went there for a track day, your fastest lap could then be 3D printed into a.
Oh, cool!
So it's about a way of using technology and data in a graphic and an interesting way. So I'm interested in that kind of thing. So what I'd like to ask is how, whoever it may be, how do they see technology impacting upon what they do, and do they worry that they're going to lose? Are they going to lose the craft? Are we close to losing the craft of what we do?
Okay, yeah, you think the technology is overtaking the
possibly,
the concept.
Anyone now can download. Well, you could download the Adobe set, but even on your iPhone or whatever, you can download some really powerful software, which will allow you to do some really, quite lovely layouts of like image and text and video and what have you. If you're a photographer, obviously there's Instagram, but there's a whole host of different apps and cameras now that have so many amazing auto features and stuff. I mean, you've got the same phone as me, and like that portrait mode in
that's great.
It's a bit bonkers, really.
It's turned everyone into an amazing photographer, basically.
Exactly. So in a world where we can utilize technology to make things that good, for want of a better phrase, should we be worried as creatives that all of a sudden we're going to be, the old joke that a couple of our clients we used to joke with was, we're going to go back to the studio now and press the design button. Yeah. Are we going to get to that point where you press the design button?
Okay. You can already technology going to overtake the need for conceptual thinking, basically.
Yeah. I mean, where do we sit? Where does the craft sit? Where does our experience sit? Where does the human element? Where does design education? Where's that going to go in a world where potentially you could have 25 routes delivered in a matter of moments that are all different, that all work to a certain set of parameters that you set as part of the client brief, which we would take away. We'd take that client brief and we'd interpret it in certain ways to create whatever we create, whereas you could set the parameters in various programs and it generates multiple options for you straight away. But where do you see it going? Where's our value? Where's our craft? Where's our experience? Where's that all going?
Okay, that's a good question.
Sorry, that's a real that's a bit of a jumbledness.
No, but I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from.
Make that sound quite coherent.
I'll edit it down so you're like. But also, the good thing about that is that the next guest is my 3-year-old daughter, so she's going to have trouble extrapolating. That.
Well, she'll probably know half the software already on the iPhone.
Oh yeah. She's hacking me now. She's hacking me now from her room. So yeah, John, I think I think that might be it. The longest podcast and the first podcast, the most important.
It's the longest podcast you've ever done. How about that?
The longest. It's the longest one.
Amazing.
I think it might be the longest one anyone's ever done. I think we've just broken a record, literally broken the podcast record. But I just wanted to say thanks very much for doing this, because obviously,
Thank you very much for having me.
you know, and you're still up for tomorrow night as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've got another.
We've done years 1 to 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, thanks very much. I really appreciate it, and it's been great to catch up with you. Anyway,
No worries.
and yeah, it's been really interesting. So thanks for that.
No worries. Take it easy.
And there you have it. If you made it this far, then congratulations. It was a little bit of a long one. If you would like to take part in any of these podcasts or have any questions that you'd like me to put forward to these creatives I'm talking to, then please hit me up. The best way to do that will be through Twitter. My details are Jay, at Love Deadline, which is one word. And yeah, I'll get back to you. So you can also find all the other usual links for the podcast and any other contact details in the descriptor below, as I mentioned before. And there's nothing else to say other than next time I will be interviewing a corporate photographer with an interesting batch of stories about how he came up through the ranks, which should be quite a good one. But for now, as always, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another.